Welcome back to Project Rejectus. Today we have a very special guest to narrate our Landfall episode. Will be narrated by White Glove art creator of Project Kira. I'll leave a link to his channel below so you can check his videos out.
Glacule is getting warmer, causing the ice in the north and southern continents to melt away from it. Life is finally given a chance to leave the waters for the first time. Before we get into the animals, of course, we need to start with the plants. There are ones who will make this possible in the first place, starting with the pandas on the center continent of Crescentia. Due to the much more tropical environment than their sister continents, these plants could move onto land much easier and colonize. Their descendants will be called the Serba, acting as an early grass. They quickly spread across Crescentia, covering the continent in bright red. On Sepsis, however, conditions weren't as forgiving, with a much colder climate like Europe on Earth. While it did take longer, it wasn't impossible, as the pandas of the continent made the same transition but instead kept to the traditional cover-the-floor style. The muslata grew in huge colonies, covering as much area as possible, acting as colonial organisms with many meters of land being a single muslata. Just as their southern cousins, they soon covered the continent in red. In Glanum, however, while Glacule is getting warmer, this continent stayed mostly the same, covered in snow, which made it impossible for plants, well, for pandas at least. On this continent, the Parties would be the ones to colonize the land. Their descendants, the Trillium, were able to beat the cold by staying in smaller colonies of 3. They gained stronger roots, taking in as much energy as possible for warmth in the colder days, and they would use this stored up energy to convert into heat, effectively fighting off the cold. But as plants emerged, animals were soon to follow on Crescentia. The Earista, already having scales that prevented moisture loss, quickly went onto the land to escape predators. However, since they prefer warmer climates, they didn't spread unto the other continents. The Angira were peaceful grazers, losing their bright colors as no predators were present. While at first going back into the water to lay their eggs and breathe, they eventually gain 2 nostrils on the side of their bodies that go into their lungs. With the development of hard-shelled eggs, they are now capable of living their whole lives on land, walking with their 3 legs. Due to the colder climate, Eurystras didn't come onto land as it was far too cold for them. For the Latostra, on the other hand, they could handle the slightly colder climate and fully went on a body plan representing their Clontia ancestors, with a quadrupedal stance. Their descendants became known as the Brockens. With incredibly flexible arms, they could maneuver through the rocky terrain, grazing through the hills to fully live on land. They gained thicker skin to retain moisture, but instead of thicker eggs, they instead made small ponds with their natural glue to keep their eggs safe until they mature into adults. And lastly, on Glanum, the coldest continent, the Timis took on the challenge by gaining hollow white hairs to retain heat, with thicker skin to maintain moisture, such as the Brockens. Their descendants, the Vernix, used all of this to thrive in the snowy tundra of Glanum. They kept their young safe by gaining more insect-like eggs. They would hide in burrows to keep them warm from the elements, moving around with a more snake-like movement, but unlike the other land creatures, their era of peace was cut short. As unlike the others, the Fursu had followed the Timis onto land, gaining thicker fur and 8 legs that they had crawled onto land after their prey, making their own adaptations. The Nasculum had gained much thicker skin to maintain heat. They repurposed their antennas as smelling organs to track their prey and could hear with their skin. They had made their lungs into 2 large holes that took in as much air as possible and kept their young safe by cuddling them for a whole period by their tail until they hatched. Thank you all for watching until the end. As always, the Discord link will be in the description, and comments along with a link to White Glove's channel. Until next time, we will talk about how these land dwellers diversify,